It's Friday, November 14th, 2025. The city stirs awake under a heavy gray sky, but the mood is far from ordinary. Across the country, a sense of unease lingers in the air, as if the nation itself is bracing for more bad news. The news is grim. NHS waiting lists have soared to record highs. Doctors are on strike. Nurses are quitting in droves, and hospitals are overflowing with patients. Ambulances wait for hours outside emergency rooms, and families worry if help will arrive in time. The health system, once a source of pride, now feels stretched to its breaking point. British farmers warn of looming food shortages as post-Brexit import checks snarl supply chains and delay deliveries. Supermarket shelves are emptier than ever, and prices keep rising. The economy is shrinking, the pound is weak, and pensions are shrinking, leaving the elderly anxious about their future. Everyday life feels more uncertain, and hope is in short supply. High streets, once bustling with shoppers and laughter, are now lined with boarded-up shops and empty storefronts. The heart of many towns has gone quiet, echoing the struggles faced by small businesses everywhere. It feels less like global Britain, and more like a country grounded by its own choices. The Union Jack, once a symbol of confidence, now seems faded and uncertain, fluttering in the cold wind as people trudge through rain-soaked streets, weighed down by worry. All this chaos traces back to one seismic event, the Brexit vote in June 2016. What began as a promise of freedom and control has spiraled into years of division, debate, and disappointment. Sold as liberation, it's become the nation's longest, most painful hangover. The slogans have faded, but the consequences linger, touching every corner of daily life. Every crisis, the NHS, the economy, farming, links directly to that choice. The headlines tell a story of mounting problems, each one a reminder of the path taken. Now, behind closed doors, a once unthinkable question is being asked. Is it time to go back? Politicians and advisors debate in hushed tones, weighing the risks and the possible way forward. Quietly, the country is mapping a path back to the very institution it left. The first steps are tentative, but the conversation has begun, and the possibility of rejoining the EU is no longer dismissed out of hand. The story of how we got here is a tragicomedy of broken promises and national regret. Campaigns full of hope have given way to a reality that few imagined, and many now wish they could undo. And now, the reckoning begins. As the nation faces the consequences of its choices, a new chapter is about to unfold. One shaped by reflection, regret, and the search for a way forward. June 23, 2016, Referendum Day. The country held its breath as people queued to vote, remain or leave. The choice was simple, but the outcome would divide the nation. Remainers, mostly younger and urban, saw the EU as opportunity and stability. Leavers, often older and rural, wanted sovereignty and control. The result: 52% leave, 48% remain. Overnight, the UK was split down the middle. Families argued, friendships fractured, and the United Kingdom was no longer united. The polite consensus of British life shattered. Two nations emerged, side by side, looking at each other with confusion and betrayal. The vote was over, but the battle had just begun. The divisions would define a generation. The country had chosen its path, but at what cost? The consequences were only beginning to unfold. How did Leave win? It was a question that puzzled many, as the results of the referendum sent shockwaves across the nation and beyond. With a big red bus and a big misleading promise, "We send the EU £350 million a week. Let's fund our NHS instead." This catchy slogan was plastered everywhere, capturing the imagination of the public. The figure was nonsense, ignoring rebates and EU funding that came back to the UK. Experts and economists were quick to point out the inaccuracies, but their voices were drowned out. But facts didn't matter. The slogan stuck. It was repeated in headlines, on television, and in conversations across the country. People desperate for better services bought into the fantasy. The promise of a better-funded NHS was too tempting to resist for many. The Leave campaign promised easy trade deals, less red tape, a fishing revival, and controlled immigration. These promises painted a picture of a prosperous, independent Britain. It was a utopian vision. Just vote Leave. The idea of reclaiming sovereignty and control was intoxicating. Reality hit hard. The NHS never saw the money, trade deals were tough, and red tape multiplied. The complexities of leaving the EU were underestimated. The fishing industry suffered, not thrived. Promises of a fishing revival turned out to be hollow. The promises that won the referendum were wishful thinking and deception. Many began to question the validity of the claims they once believed. The dreams sold to millions quickly turned into a national nightmare. The reality of Brexit was far from the rosy picture painted by the campaign. The red bus became a symbol of broken trust. It stood as a reminder of promises unfulfilled and hopes dashed. The country had been sold a fantasy. Conversations turned to regret and reflection on what could have been. The bill was now due. The financial and social costs of Brexit were becoming increasingly apparent, leaving many to wonder about the future. The morning after, Prime Minister David Cameron resigned and chaos took over. Leave leaders had no plan. Confusion reigned. Theresa May declared, "Brexit means Brexit," but no one knew what that meant. Parliament deadlocked, government floundered, and the public was left bewildered. Years of political paralysis followed, with endless debates and no clear direction. Businesses froze investments, unsure of the future. The promise of control led to a sense that no one was in control. The country paid the price for political dysfunction. It was a masterclass in how not to run a country. Nearly a decade on, the data is in, and it's bleak. Brexit has cut UK productivity by 4%, costing the economy billions every year. That's more than twice the budget for England's schools. Gone. Trade with the EU has dropped, making the country poorer. Ending free movement created staff shortages in the NHS, hospitality, and farming. Immigration from the EU fell, but non-EU immigration soared to fill gaps. Major companies moved jobs and investments to the EU. The result: fewer jobs, lower wages, and less money for public services. The economic promises of Brexit have been shattered. The numbers don't lie. Brexit has made Britain poorer. The facts are undeniable. The cost is felt by everyone. Let's get specific. It's time to look at the real-world consequences behind the headlines and slogans. The fishing industry, once held up as the poster child for Brexit's promise, is now drowning in a sea of bureaucracy and red tape. Fishermen did gain a slightly larger share of the catch, but at a steep price. They lost their main market in Europe thanks to new border delays, endless paperwork, and customs checks. Many small fishing businesses, unable to cope with the extra costs and delays, have gone under or are barely hanging on. It's not just fishermen. Small exporters like local cheesemakers and specialty food producers now face mountains of costly export forms, health certificates, and long delays at the border. Many have simply given up on EU markets entirely, cutting off a vital source of income and growth. The much-promised bonfire of red tape has instead become a towering mountain of new bureaucracy, choking small businesses and exporters. Meanwhile, the City of London lost its financial passporting rights overnight, a privilege that once allowed UK firms to operate freely across Europe. As a result, trillions in assets and thousands of high-paying jobs have shifted to Paris, Frankfurt, and Dublin, strengthening Europe's financial centers at London's expense. London's financial dominance, once the envy of the world, has been seriously kneecapped, with uncertainty clouding its future. Across the country, the UK's key industries, manufacturing, finance, and exports, have suffered blow after blow, leaving workers and communities reeling. Each sector was promised a brighter, more prosperous future. Instead, many have found the opposite: closures, job losses, and broken promises. The details of Brexit, when examined closely, read like a catalogue of self-inflicted wounds and missed opportunities. In the end, the devil was truly in the details. Details that have reshaped lives and livelihoods across the UK. What does all this mean for ordinary people? Everything is more expensive. Food prices are up due to tariffs and border checks. The weaker pound makes imports costlier. Fuel, materials, everything. Inflation has soared, but wages haven't kept up. The Bank of England raised interest rates, sending mortgage payments sky high. High streets are scarred by empty shops and struggling businesses. Public services are crumbling and the future looks bleak. The promise was a better life. The reality is less money and more worry. Living standards have declined. Brexit's cost is personal, painful, and everywhere. The referendum campaign was a mud-wrestling match of misinformation. Remain ran Project Fear, warning of instant collapse. Some predictions didn't come true, hurting their credibility. Leave ran Project Fantasy, promising easy wins and dismissing experts as scaremongers. Voters were bombarded with exaggerations and emotional appeals. The result? A decision made in a fog of confusion and hope, not facts. The public was caught in the crossfire. National regret was almost inevitable. For years, rejoining the EU was political taboo. Both major parties insisted the debate was over, even as Brexit's costs mounted. But by the mid-20s, the mood shifted. Business leaders began speaking out about lost trade and staff shortages. Polls showed a clear majority now saw Brexit as a mistake. Regrexiters, former Leave voters, joined the chorus of regret. The promises of prosperity and control had not materialized. The idea of rejoining, or at least forging closer ties, is back on the table. Officials are quietly exploring options. Public figures are making the case. The question is no longer if, but when and how the UK will reconsider its relationship with Europe. The final act of this drama is beginning. The cost of independence is being weighed against the price of isolation. The scales are tipping.